Hi everyone. I want to show you how to make a French onion sauerkraut soup. And this is really very simple and it's quite versatile. So I'm going to show you how to make the base of the soup, and then I'm going to show you how you can add extra ingredients to sort of complete this and make it into a full meal. So what we have here is 2 to 3 medium-sized onions. We're going to use 3 cloves of garlic. We're going to use 1.5 tablespoons of butter. We're going to use 1 to 2 teaspoons either organic sugar or sucanat, or you could use honey or coconut sweetener or whatever your favorite sweetener is. We're going to use some sea salt and pepper to taste, and we're going to use 1 teaspoon of oregano. We're also going to use 1.5 cups of red wine. This is a Merlot, but it doesn't really matter as long as it's nice, good red wine, inexpensive. And we're using 3 cups of broth. And so you can use chicken broth, you can use vegetable broth, it doesn't really matter. And that's the basis of our soup, and I'm just going to show you how to put it together. So I'm just going to show you how now to put this all together, and you can see I've chopped up most of the onions, and I've chopped them in a way so that they are, I won't call them half rings, but you can see that they're long and thin. I'm just going to show you how I did that. So it's a very simple process. I'm just going to cut off both ends. And then you're going to cut it in half. And then you'll peel off the brown part. I usually take the first layer of the onion off. There we go, get that off, and there's some on there too. And then I just slice it. So you'll get pieces like this, and then you can see they'll, as they cook, they're going to break apart like this, and then you'll get those pieces. All right. So we're going to start melting the butter. I've got the 1.5 tablespoons of butter in here. Let's bring this over here. And so I'm just going to start. And I'll keep chopping the onion. Now, if you're wondering if this is making me cry, the answer is yes, it is. And, you know, I've tried all kinds of things from running the onions under cold water to, you know, working really fast, you know, nothing seems to work. And so I've just come to accept this, that, you know, I have basically got an eye detox going on. Now, there's no such thing as an eye detox, but I tend to tell myself that I'm doing one, because I do think it is a good thing to sort of have water pour out of your eyes from time to time. You know, gets any junk that may be in there out and that sort of thing, and maybe that's why we like to have a good cry from time to time. But you know, this is an easier way to have a cry because you're not actually crying. So I've learned to accept that onions make my eyes water, and that's just the way it is. All right, so our butter is melting. And now we're going to throw in the onions. We're going to stir these. I've got this on high heat right now, and you can, sometimes you get a little bit of the brown from the skin, from the onions. That's not a big deal. I would never worry about it, but if you see it and you want to pull it out, you can do that. So all we're doing is trying to get the onions to be translucent. They're going to continue to cook. They don't have to completely cook in here, so they will cook down once we add the wine and the broth. I knew you were in there. There we go. You do not want to let the butter brown. So if you think by lowering it to a lower temperature would be helpful, you can do that. If you're stirring like this, it tends to work a little better. It also prevents the onions from browning, which you don't really want. Now, I never add the garlic at this point because I always find it browns too fast. So I usually add this just before I add the wine. So while we're waiting for the onions to do their thing, I'm just going to remind you what a great source of prebiotics the onions are. So are the garlic. So is the red wine. And so we've got a lot going on here that's going to aid gut health and digestibility. And of course, we're going to add some sauerkraut later, which of course is going to add some probiotics. So we got a lot going on in this soup. So you can see the onions are starting to break down. Starting to become a little translucent. They're not quite there yet. Now, if you didn't want to stand here and stir, you could put this on a much lower heat, and then, you could walk away and come back and stir it occasionally, but that just takes longer. So I say just crank up the heat, stir it, and get it over with. Okay, so these are cooked down quite a bit. As you can see, we've lost volume, which is a good sign that they're cooking. And now we're going to add the garlic, which I have chopped. I'm going to stir that in. And now we're going to add the wine. So what we're going to do now is put this on high heat and bring this to a boil. And this will allow the alcohol to cook off, so you're not going to get an alcohol taste. And we're not going to stir it because that slows down the heating process. So we're just going to let this boil on its own. We can add the sea salt if we like right now. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to put in about half a teaspoon. I'm going to add the sugar right now. As I said, it's about 1 to 2 teaspoons. And I'm going to add the oregano. Putting in a teaspoon of that. And again, if you don't want to use oregano, you can use thyme, you can use savory, you could use basil, you could use a combination of the herbs. It doesn't really matter. And we're just going to let that come to a boil. Okay, so this is boiling now. We can add the broth. And now we have to bring it to a boil again, and then we'll lower it to simmer. All right, so you can see that this is boiling. I'm just going to add a bit of the pepper now, and we'll taste this later and season it for its final taste, but it's always nice to have some in here. Okay, so we're going to lower this to simmer, and then we're going to put a lid on it, and we're going to let this sit for about 20 minutes, and then we're going to come back and add some other ingredients. Alright, so it's been about 20 minutes. As you can see, our onions are quite cooked. They're They're actually purple now, which is kind of cool. And so now we're going to increase the nutritional value of this soup. So we're going to add 2 carrots that have been sliced. We're going to add about, a cup to 2 cups of cauliflower. We're going to add a celery stalk, plus I included the leaves. I just think it gives nice flavor. And then we're adding about 2 cups of kale. And we're going to put all of that in there. And bring this back up to a boil. And we're going to now cook the vegetables. So you can add other vegetables here. You can add asparagus, you could add spinach, you could add broccoli, zucchini, any vegetable you would like to add. However, you have to be aware of how long those vegetables take to cook. So cauliflower, celery, kale, and carrots all take about the same amount of time, so they all went in at once. They're going to take about 5 to 10 minutes maximum in order to be, the right texture that you probably want to have for eating. And then if I was using zucchini, I wouldn't add it right now. I would wait until there's about 3 minutes left and throw the zucchini in. If it was spinach, I would wait until there's about a minute left or 2 minutes left and throw it in at that point. So essentially you just want to adjust when you add the vegetables based on how long it normally takes to cook them. So you can see this is starting to boil again. And so we can put our lid on and come back when it's cooked. So let's look at the soup now. And we can see that it's simmering nicely. We put a fork in the carrots. You can see they're soft. So this is ready. So we're going to turn this off. And now what we're going to do is finish seasoning it. So I'm just going to put a bit more pepper in. And we're going to put a bit more sea salt in. And then we're going to give it a stir. This is so pretty. And now we'll just taste it. Yum, that's good. Okay, so now we're ready to put the soup in a bowl. We're just going to move this out of the way. And what I have here is the usual thing that you put together with French onion soup. So I've got some sourdough bread here that's been baked in the oven. You can call this crostini. I have a video if you want to check out how to do this called sourdough crostini. And if you look, you can see there's some oregano on it. It was lightly buttered, and when I say lightly, I mean lightly buttered, with a little sea salt and pepper in the oregano. You can see I only put the oregano and sea salt and pepper on one side, and I've cut them in half because that'll fit the bowl better. And so this is a more traditional way of doing this. However, you don't have to do this. You could instead, if you want to make this more of a meal, you could put in brown rice, you could put in chickpeas or black beans. Any of those things would work well. You could even put in chopped chicken if you like. The key here is the flavor of the wine with the onion and the garlic, and everything tastes good with that on it. So it doesn't really matter. But we're just going to put a piece in, and then we're going to scoop the soup on top. And then we're going to take our sauerkraut and we're going to put that on top. And again, you could serve this like this is if you like, or you can top it with some mozzarella cheese, which is very traditional, and then just pop this under the broiler. You could also use raw milk aged cheddar. And make sure if you're using mozzarella, it's a nice fresh mozzarella. And again, if you're looking for the raw milk cheddar, try to get an organic one. But you can see how nice that looks, and I'm just going to pop that under the broiler. Okay, so I've melted it under the broiler. I didn't melt it very long because, you know, we do have the sauerkraut on here, but the cheese is protecting the sauerkraut, so it's not getting cooked. And of course, it takes much longer to kill bacteria than just a few minutes. Even if you put it in heat, it takes longer. So, but just to be on the safe side, I just melted it lightly. That's all you really need. I know typically when you see French onion soup, you see that beautiful bubbly cheese look with the brown on top, but we don't really need that. It all tastes the same. And so there you have our sauerkraut French onion soup. And what I'm going to do with this that's left over is I'm going to put this in the freezer, and then I can take this out at any time, throw into this whatever I want, and it's a quick, fast, easy meal. I don't have to do a bunch of vegetables, and it's really, really tasty. So I hope you give this a try.